Hey guys, welcome to the live stream. Another Wednesday, and we're just gonna take a quick look at the charts, what we have going on thus far in the market for the week, and the setups that we could potentially see coming up for the rest of this week, moving into next week, right? And we do have some fairly good setups starting up here at the beginning of the week. We did get a couple of trades here in the Discord VIP group, as well as the free Discord community channel as well. I sent all my trades to the VIP as well as some trades into the free channel as well, and also the Telegram channel. Right. So just want to cover a few things that we have happening thus far, right? And the first thing that I want to cover is that we are in a risk on market environment, right? So we have been seeing the USD. If we take a look here at the DXY overall from the daily time frame, we have been seeing the USD, the dollar strength, actually decrease quite a bit, right? So we're currently seeing price approaching this next level of support where we have all the big fundamental institutions and banks looking to see whether price is able to maintain this level here for the US dollar. If we do actually see price push lower, now we should see a sharp decline from the dollar, as well as some fears stepping into the market, and overall the USD should sell quite heavily, right? So this is the next level that we are potentially looking at to see what price does at this level. If it starts reacting to this level and rejects to continue with this overall upward trend, or if we're just going to see a break lower and continue to the downside with that USD strength. Now, there's a few reasons as to why this is happening, and we'll discuss that. But for now, let's just take a look at the AD, the NCD, and all these other risk currencies, right? So taking here a look at the AD, what we could currently see that the AD, the Australian dollar, is very bullish, right? So we have this strong moving uptrend. Price is kind of consolidating in this area. As you can see, I do have two trades open on this with a 4% risk in total. Looking to see that continuation to the upside. Now, the reason why we're seeing these risk assets being picking up in strength is due to that USD weakness. All right. So if we just have a look on the economic calendar, what we saw happening thus far, right? Before that, we had the USD starting to sell off after the large rally to the upside. We start seeing that sell off happen after the CPI data, right? After the CPI data did come out a little lesser than expected, right? We saw price for the US dollar start to head strongly to the downside, right? We start seeing that downtrend movement starting to play in. And as more institutional banks and traders step in, we saw that USD continue with the decline. Now, as a matter of fact, what we could expect now, right? We are at a very interesting point in terms of the DXY, what we could expect price to do at this point. If we maintain that level, we should see price either continue to trend back with the US dollar in favor, or we'll see that sell-off. Now, me personally, I am still bullish on the dollar because we have been seeing the economy recover a little bit slightly better compared to the rest, as well as with those new inflationary numbers actually decreasing compared to some of the other economies, such as the UK, right? UK inflation is currently at 11%, right? So taking a look at some of the GBP pairs, as we just run along with the fundamentals, I'll show you guys the technicals as well. Taking a look at some of the GBP pairs, such as GBP USD, you can see we do have sort of a uptrend movement right now, right? But we are at an interesting point as well here. Price has just managed on the previous day to push above this level of resistance, right? So taking a look here, what we want to see, if prices continue moving upwards with that GBP in favor, then we should see that continuation move. We should see a retest and a continuation move to the upside. Now, as I said, I am personally bearish on this. I am in more favor of the US dollar compared to the GBP overall. The US dollar is quite strong. We did see those little sell-offs, but we do have reasonings for that, right? As well as the lower CPI numbers, and we have inflation coming down. And I do believe we did have some news today as well with consumer spending, right? So retail sales did actually go up higher than expected, right, by 1.4% than the consensus, what we were expecting, right? So with that being said, we're seeing that consumers, the average person, still spending, right? From the average household, right? And that is excluding gas, auto vehicles, and stuff like that. So with that being said, what we could expect moving forward is more interest rates increase from the Fed, just to tighten that consumer spending, because we want to bring inflation down, right? I want to continue bringing inflation back into those more controllable levels. So with that being said, we should see price actually, we should see, sorry, an interest rate increase, right? So let me just take this chart out, right? So we should actually see the interest rates actually being increased, and that's more bullish for the US dollar. So that is the expectancy that I'm going with. Overall, in terms of the fundamentals too, added with that, the GBP high inflationary levels right now. So it's not really in a very attractive buying zone for the institutional traders, just with that high inflation, and they have been lagging with the interest rates increase. Now, when you take those factors together, that basically gives us a very bearish fundamental for the GBP, right? Obviously, all these economies, they want to bring inflation back into those more controllable levels. So that's what we're mainly largely looking at, right? And in terms of the GBP USD, the US dollar is a more favorable currency. Again, we did have that USD sell off, so that's why we saw this upward movement on all of these USD cross pairs. But in the long term of things, if price manages to come back down below this level, then we should see a continuation fall, right, in favor of the US dollar, right? So that's something that I'll be potentially looking at, looking for price to pull past this area and then a continuation to the downside. That is the larger move that I am expecting from this, from the GBP USD, as well as any other USD cross pair such as the Euro USD as well, right? If we take a look at them, they all have the same sort of movement. And this, again, is just backed by the US dollar weakness that we did see, right? And we are in the risk on sort of sentiment right now. So all of that is playing a part as to why we're seeing the risk assets take off. But long term, when we take a long term view, right, of the charts of price action and the fundamentals, the US dollar has more room to grow and improve, right? So you just want to see a recovery of that economy, the labor numbers, job numbers, jobless claims to be lower, right? If we have more employment as well will play a factor into that USD strength and labor market just being more robust, right? So all of that are data that we could potentially look at for that USD bullishness. It will be an insight to seeing the Fed increase rates as well as giving more insight to the US dollar becoming more bullish in the long term, right? If we take a look on the economic calendar, we can see what we have coming up for next week, right? So something that I like to do personally is be ahead of the news. And I like to make be aware of when we do have more important news events coming up, right? So such as interest rate decisions, we have CPI data, as well as when we have GDP, and also when we have big news speeches from um, federal bank representatives, right? So from the Fed, we have Jerome Powell, as well as the AUD. We also have Gov Lo, right? So these speeches, what these people have to say about the economy, really does impact the dollar, the currency itself, because it carries a lot of weight what they have to say because they represent these banks, right? So what they have to say, their inputs do matter to the overall economy, as well as economists and actual financial institutes and traders alike, right? So we do have interest rate coming up next week for the NZD, and we're expecting a rate increase here as well by 75 basis points, right? Continuing looking on, we do have a lot of USD news, right? So we have a lot of USD news coming up. FOMC minutes as well next week, the Wednesday. So that's something that we should pay attention to. As you can see, I already highlighted that. And I do believe that we do have interest rates for the USD, but I think that is coming to the ending of the month or something like that. All right. So if you just scroll along, I think either that or we have it for the, I think the euro or something, right? So I'm not seeing it here, but I do believe that we have interest rates increase again at some point for the year from the USD, right? So these are the things that we need to pay attention to and be aware of when we have these news events coming up, right? So in terms of other charts that I am looking at, again, risk on assets taking off right now. So you really want to be a player in the AUD, the NZD, you have the GDP, the GBP, sorry, as well as the CAD, right? So these are the more currencies that move in favor when there's risk on sentiment, right? And because we're seeing that USD weakness and we're seeing that kind of hesitance, right, when the US dollar becomes more bearish, right, the economy is in a state of panic, basically, right? Now, usually in a state of panic, that means that we wouldn't be buying the risk on assets, right? But because we have that uncertainty playing and that US dollar weakness, and we're seeing more of those safe haven pairs giving up gains, right? Such as the JPY, the US dollar, the CHF, and also also the euro, right? So these are the currencies that people flock to in terms of when there's uncertainty, and you want to be more reserved when you're trading, right? So with that in mind, guys, we taking it as it goes, right? We play with probabilities, right? And that's the thing that we should note when we are trading or we're taking trades. You never want to call the highs. You never want to call, okay, maybe this is the point where price is going to turn around. You want to see it happen, right? You want to see it to then know that this is the move that you need to make now. So with that in mind, what we're seeing right now is those risk assets pick up. So we want to be part of that buying trend, right? As the risk assets continue to move. And you can see here over the course of the month, the AUD has been moving quite a bit, right? So we can see at the starting here, around here at the start of the month, price dropped down in favor of the US dollar. Then we saw right around here, I believe, is when we had interest rates, sorry, the PPI, CPI come out, right? And we saw price starting to move in the opposite direction, right? And we could see the strong risk on currency, this risk on environment starting to take place, right? So as price passes level, we saw that continuation move. At this point, people would be, looking to call tops, right? And looking to sell the currency. The average retail trader will be looking to do that. But we want to be the ones that not average. We want to be the ones that thinking like the banks do, right? So we see a trend emerge. We see a turn in sentiment, right? And we saw that price started to move upwards. At that point, you look for buys, and that is what we did. And you can see we continuing with this sort of this buy bias, right? So as price continue to move along, we need to see some levels break before we look to sell, right? As well as the fundamentals need to align before we start selling the US dollar, because it doesn't make sense trying to sell the US dollar on the technical analysis, right? On the technical chart when the fundamentals don't align, right? So if the US dollar, remains weakened, and we see that price pulls back, now this could just be a pullback for that continuation moving upwards. If we don't have any fundamental bias to basically give us a signal or reassurance that, okay, this pullback is not just a pullback for price to continue moving upwards, but it is a change in sentiment, right? So that is what we need to be aware of, the fundamentals, and why fundamentals play such an important part if you want to be a professional trader and someone that's able to do this in the long term, right? Sticking to technicals, nothing is wrong with that, but you should be aware of the fundamentals in cases like this, right? So US dollar is weakened right now. Any pullbacks that we do make is a pullback for potential buy continuation. At least that's how I see it until further notice. If we do get some USD bullishness or some news event, that's a catalyst to basically influence the US dollar in a bullish way, right? So that's something that you need to pay attention to, and something that I'm myself being aware of. All right. So continuing moving on, if we do get any pullbacks, one significant area that we are looking at is this area right here. As you can see in the larger uptrend, this is an area of support. Price has been just moving between these two areas. So you can see it's kind of zoning, kind of ranging, right? Without any real momentum that's able to continue that push upwards, right? So that doesn't mean necessarily that we're looking for sells at this particular junction here, right? But we can potentially see a pullback back into these levels as price ranges, right? So this is a possible range trade that you could take. Personally, I'm not gonna add any additional risk to the trades I do have running. But this is something that has a lot of potential to possibly play out, right? Maybe you could take the trade when price comes back into this level or deeper, right? Keeping stop loss relatively loose and just looking to take profits right back into this zone. So this is something that has a lot of potential to actually play out. And depending if I am floating in profit on my other trades, then I would take this because this does has a lot of this has a higher probability of playing out than price just pushing all the way downwards, right? So that's something that this is a potential trade setup, right? So if you're watching this, if you're viewing this right now, or if you see it later, you can follow along and potentially get into a trade on this, right? So this is a free trade for you guys. That's viewing this right now, right? Continuing on, looking at the other assets, right? I'm in this trade here on 80 card, and you can see prices just bouncing around between this zone, right? So we don't really have any momentum. The momentum is weakened right now. As you see, we did have this very strong bullish movement, right? And we're kind of consolidating before we see another push. So this is a consolidation movement right now. Price is gradually pushing upwards. However, not by, these sort of movements that we want to see in a very strong trending currency pair, right? This could be because we do have low volume, right? There's barely any volume. It is November, coming to the end of the year. A lot of businesses are closed. There's not much trading going on, not much traveling either. So the exchange of currency is very, I would say it's not at a halt, but the pace of that in itself has been coming to sort of slowing down, right? So because of that low volume situation, we're seeing price basically just ranging and doing these sort of movements a lot more than the average trend that we want to see, right? The clear movement, clear, concise movements that we want to see from price action from the candles. And this is something that you can expect during these times, the last quarter of the year, especially the last 2 months of the year. That is something that's within expectancy to see, right? So noting that the catalysts that we are looking for are those news events, those high impactful news events that may give us some sort of bullish or bearish movement depending on what the data says, right? And this is why the news events are actually very important right now, at least to me, from my perspective, is why we need to pay attention to them. Because if you're somebody that's trading right now, you want to use these catalysts as those are the movements, right? Those are the starting point where you could get possible trades to move in your direction or get some gains or yields from it, right? So to be more concise and more clear. So with that being said, I am gonna buy on this, waiting for that catalyst to hit this week. Let's just reload this chart here. What we have coming up, you can see that we have employment change, right? So we are expecting the employment from the Australian economy to actually be good, quite good, right? So the consensus is 15K compared to the previous, which is 0.9. All right, so if the consensus does come as expected or even higher, that's very bullish for the AUD, right? And you can see we also have the unemployment rate. If this comes out lower, then that would be good as well, right? Unemployment, the amount of people unemployed, a lower than expected number is bullish for the dollar, right? Whatever currency you are looking at. So this is the next set of catalysts that we are looking at to potentially gain some movement from the AUD. Along with that risk sentiment being a risk on market environment that we are in, when these numbers do come out, I do expect a very bullish movement from the AUD, right? Even if the consensus does not come out as expected with that 15K, anything better than the previous, it should be a bullish enough consensus, right? Because that means the amount of people employed compared to the last, because this is looking at the from October, right? Is a bullish sentiment, has a bullish sentiment, right? So that is something that I'm paying attention to and looking forward to. Maybe we might see price actually break above, and then when we do have that news event, it just continues pushing even higher. At that point, if price does break above, I'll remove my TPs and let it just run, right? Same thing goes for the AD here, AD USD. That may be the potential move to continue propelling the AD even higher, right? And as you can see from the previous, we did have more weaker in terms of the news that we did have. Retail sales is the only thing that matters here, really, because that gives the economists, the federal banks as well, a basic look at consumer spending, if they need to continue tightening rates even more to control that spending and bring inflation down, right? So this was higher than expected. It's bullish because it could lead to more bullish reaction from the Federal Reserves, right? So that is why that number is actually bullish for the US currency. Um, so that being said, let's continue looking at the other pairs. Something that I want to look at. Sorry, this is Euro AUD. I did take a trade for a small risk here. Price continued heading upwards. We're seeing the euro recover a little bit here. If we take a look, right, we're seeing the euro actually pick up the pace a little bit against the other risk currencies, right? Like euro NZD also picking up, and so forth. But this just basically provides a good opportunity to sell back down, right? So I will be re-entering this if price does manage to come back into this level of entry right here, below the level here, for that continuation back downwards. So this is another potential trade setup. So if you're viewing this right now, or you see it later on, then please feel free to take the trade, or you could just watch and see what happens. Either way, this is a trade that I'm going to get into myself once we see price come back down. It should possibly go all the way back into these lows here, right? So that is another potential trade setup that we could potentially end the week on, and it'll be a great week finishing. I'm totally up. I'm over 20% right now, so doing pretty solidly good, right? Fairly good. And compared to last week was a losing week, lost around 11-13%, right? I did risk 2% on every trade I did take. Again, I was clear with the community when I said I was going to do that as well. So instead of being a 5% loss, it was a 10% loss. Then I put more risk onto another trade, and it just completely went sideways. But again, if you do have a strategy, and this is just a little key, information. If you do have a strategy and your strategy is profitable and it works, then you consistently apply that. Then more often than not, you'll see more wins than losses, and that is just always a part of trading, right, guys? So this is for any of you that are getting discouraged with your trading. If your strategy just isn't working out all the time, or you run into a losing streak or something like that, then don't feel discouraged. Stick with what you know, stick with your strategy, keep implementing it, and you should be fine, right? No, you will be fine, okay? So that's just a little message from me to you guys. Any struggling traders out there that are seeing some sort of losing streak, or the trade's just not working out like how you want it to, especially if you are part of a community. It is very hardening, it's very saddening to see when other people are winning, right? And you're just suffering with the losing streaks, or the reds or whatever, and everybody else in blues, right? That is just like human nature. It's not like being envious or anything like that, but it's money. When money is involved, then emotions get involved, right? And you need to just try to lower that emotional involvement that you do have with your trading, and just stick to the what you know, implement the strategies and all of that, right? So let's actually look, continue moving forward. Um, other things that I'm looking at, right? So we're seeing here again the euro is picking up on the day, and we're seeing it actually approaching back to these daily levels here, these daily highs. So this was a high created here. You can see that we did pass all these other highs right here, right? So we're seeing that bullishness actually kick in. Another step for this would actually be seeing a retest and then a possible continuation if price does manage to pull back here on the euro card, right? So but me potentially, I wouldn't get involved with this because the euro just, I don't know, since price has already taken off at this point, I wouldn't get involved. Possibly if it does manage to push even higher, then I'll, and it retests the highs, then I'll probably get involved to continue moving up. But right now, I am more focused on the risk assets to continue seeing that movement. right? Looking at gold, we're seeing that ranging, right? Gold is just ranging as well. We can see that price is just, after all this bullishness here, it's basically consolidated. The momentum has died down a little bit. Continue moving forward. It may continue pushing up, right? So these are the two levels that we're looking at. We're looking at here for price to possibly retest, right? Let me just remove this. All right, we're looking at here for price to possibly retest to continue moving up, as well as a push above this level. So these are two things that we're paying attention to. Now, price is consolidating. If we get a push lower, right, this would be if we see the USD recovers, then we see a continuation move back down, right? It could also be a retest or a pullback for a retest and then a continuation movement. But again, if that US dollar weakness does continue to push along, then we should just see price range on these US assets, and then we might see a continuation moving up, right? So it's all about whether we have the volume to do so or not. But more than likely, we should see price continue moving on unless we do have some change in the fundamental factor affecting the US dollar. So that's basically it in terms of what we're looking at the charts, right? So hopefully you get some information out of this. Continue moving forward. We could just monitor those two trades that I'm currently in. I'm looking at this one. Just looking for that pullback. Might enter with 2% risk and see how that plays out. And as well as the GBP currencies as well. These are all the pullbacks right now. I am not bullish. I'm not bullish on the GBP at all, with given how the economy is right now. So with these pullbacks, I think there will be better setups to potentially short the GBP or see sell side continuations, right? So that's it for right now, guys. Hopefully you found this video, this live stream informational. You got some information out of it and you get potential trade setups. I really do hope everybody's having a great trading week. I know I am. And everybody inside the VIP Discord community group as well. So with that being said, thank you guys for joining. Leave a like, subscribe. It really helps the YouTube channel and the algorithm. Let's get more people to this live stream, to the channel, and help change lives, because that's what I really want to do, and I'm really passionate about doing that. But I want to be real with you guys, right? That's why I don't post those bullshit videos about my $100 a day making strategies and all of that, and this YouTube channel looks very plain. Right? And there's a reason for that. Only I really want serious traders. I want people that's committed to making a life change. That's are willing to take this seriously and put in the effort and grind to actually be beneficial as a trader, right? So that being said, thanks guys. Subscribe, like, so you'll be notified to when I go live. I'm doing this every Monday and Wednesdays, as well as Fridays, right? I'm gonna try to be coming up here every day as we continue into next year. That's something that I want to do as well. Right. So thank you guys.